Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Tamara, and we are back with another book review. I decided to jump on the bandwagon and read this book that has been recommended to me for quite some time. I have been sleeping on it in terms of reading it, but I figured it was now or never because I know there's a sequel coming out for this. I'm pretty sure it's like the first week of May. So we're reading the first one, which was Dire Bound. I feel like I have heard so much about this, but like not at the same time. So here's what I know about this before going into reading it. I knew about this sequel that arguably people are saying is going to be significantly better than this first one. I also knew this was about direwolves, and it's in an academy setting. And a lot of people have a love-hate reaction to this book. So some either really love it or some just really don't. And that's all I got. That's all I got going into this. I did also, I should reference that I have heard some stuff about people comparing this to Fourth Wing a little bit too. So we'll talk about that. But that's all I got going into this. And before I even get started with my thoughts on this book, these are spoiler talk reviews, guys. If you haven't read it and do care to be spoiled, I would step aside, read it, and then come back to chat. But if you've read it and or you just don't care for spoilers, then let's talk about it. I, unfortunately, on the love-hate spectrum, when it comes to this book, feel like I'm leaning more to the negative side. For me, this book is, in my opinion, honestly, pretty overhyped. I'm sorry if that's an unfavorable opinion for anyone watching this right now, but I do believe that. I feel like it was a fun time. Don't get me wrong. It was fun. I like the worlds. And I'm going to talk about the stuff I really did enjoy, but let me revert back to what I rated this book because I had a hard time with this one in terms of my rating, because I try not to do half scores of any kind because I just feel like I want to stick to the solid numbers, but I physically could not for this one stick to the solid numbers. I was at such a war with myself that I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. So not great, but also not like god awful. So in my thought process, if I give something a 3, I really it was a good fun time, good read. I left thinking like that was an okay book. Didn't hate it, didn't love it, but didn't hate it. When it's a 2, it's definitely leaning on the undesirable side for me. And I feel like I liked so much about this book, specifically in the first half, that my last final taste of this book wasn't great. And it was because of the FMC for this one for me. And I couldn't get over how annoying and frustrated I was with that character by the end of this. And she's the main character. So I had a really hard time leaving this book in a positive impression right after reading it, because that's the last thing I got was this FMC and her stupidity. But anyways, so it was a 2.5 because I feel like a 2 is too harsh, because I did really like some stuff in this that I think has full potential to do so well in the sequel. I actually do believe what people are saying, that the sequel will be better, because I feel like in my eyes it can't really get worse unless they just completely kibosh everything we've developed in the second one. And I find they're probably not going to do that. So I have some high hopes for the second. I actually pre-ordered it already before I actually read this book. I pre-ordered it because I knew I would read it based on what I would heard about it being better. Automatically I got it. So we will be doing a review for that too once I get it in the mail. All right, so for this book, I mentioned that the world, I really did enjoy the world in this. And the Fourth Wing references people are making, I get it. I understand. I would agree that there is definitely some Fourth Wing similarity, and that being that our FMC ends up bonding with a direwolf that is a little bit more prickly, doesn't really want to bond with anybody, is highly regarded amongst the direwolves for being super strong, and then they end up kind of earning each other's respect and build on that relationship. And that is similar to Fourth Wing with FMC in that bonding with a pretty prickly but ancient dragon that is highly regarded. So similar in that regard, but I do think that in this book, what I liked about it, and I mentioned this loosely before, is that the world I really do enjoy in this. And if we're just referencing the Fourth Wing stuff, Dire Bound is about bonding with dire wolves. So like the wolf mentality that they teach them in this school about bonding with your wolf, but also developing the pack mentality that like these people that are now in your group, like in your pack, are your newfound family. And in addition, you and your wolf become almost like one soul in that sense. And I feel like the wolf emphasis about the pack and that family aspect is very unique in this book. It is obviously about wolves. And so I feel like that's different than Fourth Wing. Like they really focus on the pack stuff in this. And I like it. I feel like that was a differentiating factor, and it was a pretty big factor in this book. So I enjoyed everything about that. I felt like it was very unique. And as of recently, I haven't really read a lot of material that focuses on direwolves as much as this book does. So I feel like it was a good time for me to pivot and read this book, because just to mix some stuff up. So I enjoyed that aspect. I enjoyed the whole world development as to how we get to the school, how we qualify, the military references, and then like the huge emphasis on what the school represents and the teachings and all of the classes, like those details as to how we're actually progressing and becoming something within the school. They gave a lot of detail to the world building, and they gave a lot of detail to just like the meaning behind things. And I really enjoyed that, because there's also a reference in this where when you take a life, you get tatted, so you get a tattoo, and our female lead comes into this whole schooling atmosphere with a lot of resentment, a lot of judgment that isn't necessarily valid, but it's all she's known. And she always interpreted people that have a ton of tattoos as like wearing death like a badge of honor and like showing it off, instead of what it actually meant, which is to value life. And if you ever did have to take someone's life, then you should wear it to remember their life, and also just it shouldn't be disvalued. And that's exactly what she kind of thought it was when people would have these tattoos, especially those who have a lot of them. And I just felt like it was very interesting. It gave a lot of depth to a lot of the world stuff in this, and I really enjoyed that, especially coming in at the beginning of this book. You really get to see a lot of this exposure to the school, to the direwolf bonding as like a new thing from the FMC's eyes, because she came from a place of poverty. She came from a place where you don't bond with wolves. Like those people who bond with the wolves are considered a little bit more well off. They've never known hardship. They work very closely under like the royal bloodline. So they just seemingly are from two separate areas, and she just resents the ease of their life at that point in the earlier stages of this book, because she really can't relate, and she's only developed her own false perceptions of it as she like watches from the sidelines of that whole world that seems so different than her own. So I think it's interesting to learn it from that perspective. And even just like the side where she grew up in, I do think was very interesting. I think that they alluded to some like secret little mystery about children disappearing, and that was an underlying theme in this too, which upped the stakes, especially for her, because at the beginning of this and ongoing, but specifically at the beginning, she really demonstrates to me a lot of like Katniss Everdeen, so Hunger Games reference a little bit, with her relationship with her family, because in this, she has a kid sister who she pretty much has taken on the responsibilities of raising this whole time, because she lost her dad in the war. Her mom never really bounced back from that loss and isn't the most reliable. So then the FMC, being the older sister, has taken on raising the younger sibling. And that's very, very Katniss in the Hunger Games. And then plus, our FMC in this book volunteers to join the military front, which gives her an opportunity to find her sister who's been taken and in respect save her, assuming she's in harm's way. So similar again to the Hunger Games, with volunteering as tribute in Hunger Games to save her sister. So I did find the beginning had some really loose comparisons to the Hunger Games, just with that family complex. But the idea of volunteering to the military, had to fight your way up some big like wall, fortress, ice wall to even get to a premise where you can decide to be in the military or to bond with a wolf. It's just, there's a lot of like growth in the hardship that like leads into this, where you feel super, I don't know, it's very badass. Like I really enjoyed that build up. I enjoyed everything the school represented, everything we learned about that. We got to meet two twin sisters who are from that side, and her and their FMC, or sorry, the FMC and the twins work together to kind of get past the first stage before they even bond to the direwolves, and then they develop this like ongoing relationship while they're all in school together. And I really did enjoy that. They were from two different worlds completely, and our FMC was really like hostile and like, you know, defensive with them because she felt like she couldn't relate, but she could. And it just kind of closes that gap between what she thought she knew of like this upper class society versus what she knew. And so it was good. I really enjoyed the first half of this when they really set the stage and developed these relationships really early on. Now there is a reference in here that picked up right at the beginning, which is her love interest. So this FMC is really focused on like, she brings a lot to the table. Like she actually can fight. Like she's pretty good at defending herself and thinking on her feet. So she had a lot of like really good, deeply rooted qualities with like her being so family, like focused, loyal. She can fight. Like she had a lot going for her at the beginning for me. And she had pretty much her sister, her mom, and then a love interest who seemingly was someone that's been around for a while, which his name was Lee. Right at this book started, we were already in a relationship with this guy. So we, as readers, have to just accept the fact that they probably have known each other for quite some time. And this relationship is like incredibly developed by the time we meet him at the very beginning. Like they love each other, like it's pretty developed. And so when she volunteers, she assumed that she was leaving this potential future behind with this man, because she didn't know if she would see him again or survive everything that's coming when she volunteered. He ended up being someone of royalty and ends up being associated to the school. So she didn't actually say bye to him. She didn't know that at the time. So when she figures out that he's actually not like a person of a different social rank than she is, like he's actually pretty well off and fits in that society. There were some trust issues there, obviously, as they bridge those gaps. And then they continue their relationship throughout this book. So that relationship was a big focal point in this, okay? And for me, he ends up being the villain as well. And I do find that very predictable because in the earlier stages, I was like, when someone introduces a love interest this hard at the beginning and just expects you to follow along with it, I would either think by the end of this book, this person is dying, so our character can develop more and not rely heavily on this character, because I just feel like that's not how a lot of stories go. There's either like a big sacrifice or the person that you trust the most is the villain. And so as the story was progressing and some of the stuff that was happening with Lee, I instantly assumed he was the villain. And we were correct. So this book was in some senses predictable. I don't necessarily fault that as if that's a bad thing. It's just kind of like felt a little lackluster where it was supposed to hit, because clearly it didn't, because it was predictable. But that's okay. Like, that's okay. It was still like a really fun read. But their relationship in general, there are certain parts in this, like there was a lot of spice. And at the beginning, when you're like first really getting used to their relationship, you're like here for the spice. But then I felt like it was they added almost like too much spice with a relationship that was just kind of like staying on one pace. I just feel like there wasn't a lot of meaning with some of the spice that they added after the fact, that they were just throwing it in to throw it in. So I got a little bored of some of the spice by like the second half of the book, and I was kind of like, okay, I'm done with this. Either kill the man or reveal he's a bad guy, which sounds awful to say, but I just feel like there wasn't a lot of angst in it for me. And then you introduce a character like Stark, who's pretty mysterious. When they physically described him, I'm like, he's going to be her person. I already know, but it's going to be probably like a slow burn. But it was like a slow burn of a slow burn, because they really don't get that many like seeds of potential relationship in this. The only thing that I felt was predictable as well is that they're drawn to each other, don't necessarily like each other, but drawn to each other. And it was, to my perception, assumed because their wolves are mated. And that was a reveal towards the end of this. So again, kind of predictable. And I assume that's where it was. So now we end up on this book note of revealing that the bad guy is the guy she trusted the most. And in addition to that, their wolves are mated, so she doesn't even know whatever her pull is to Stark. Is it genuine? Is it just because of the wolves? So I am very interested in the Stark character for the second book, because they didn't give him too much of like a character. He's like a teacher who's like, well, not a teacher, but he is one of the instructors, very highly regarded in the school in general for like being very loyal to like the principles of the school, and then also to the war front and stuff like that. So I feel like we got a lot about his reputation, what he stands for, but I want to know more about like him as a person. And they kind of alluded to that very loosely, but I think that's really going to be a focal point in the next one, which is piquing my interest because I just love characters like this Stark guy. I already knew I would, so I'm excited for the next bit because of this. Now, the FMC, I feel like I have to allude to this, that she, in this, the first half, I understood. Like, I understood why she's, like, so difficult to bond with. Like, she has her core group of people she's loyal to, and she doesn't really care to make these relationships. She has trust issues. She's focused on, like, the goal to find her sister, but she can't leave now that she's bonded with a wolf. She can't leave to find her sister, otherwise she dies. So it's not like they're physically holding her captive. It was she will die if she doesn't try to adjust and assimilate to this new reality she's faced. And I feel like in the second half of the book, this girl is given so many opportunities and so many people believe in something in her. Her wolf, her instructors, her friends that keep, like, the friend group kept growing a little bit, and she just doesn't give a shit. Like, it just, to me, it felt like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand what so many people see in this girl, because to me, she's very undeserving. I do think she could be a good leader. I do think that she has full potential to be a great character, but she felt like she just couldn't care at all in the second half of this. Her wolf, like, they have all these moments where, like, people are literally spelling it out for her that, like, how do you expect to progress with your wolf? How do you expect to progress in your classes if you don't want to be here? And, like, accepting the fact that this is now your life, there's no escaping it. So adjust and try. And she acknowledges the truth in everything these people are telling her, including her wolf. But then she, like, tries for, like, a second to almost make them happy briefly, and then reverts back to her ways where it's just, like, again, focused on her people from the past, focused on her sister. And we get it. And it turns out that, like, a lot of this overlapped anyway. Her sister was at the school. But anyways, I digress. I just felt like this girl is incredibly undeserving, where I felt actually offended for everyone that has to deal with her. And they emphasize so much about, like, the principles of this school and the bond and the pack, like, stuff, and how, like, it's not just you. You are now part of a pack, so you need to think about someone other than yourself. And I feel like the girl didn't know how to do that, and it bugged me so much. I'm like, I'm not gonna say she's selfish, because I don't think she does stuff with selfish intent. I just think that just doesn't care enough to drive a lot of her choices, and that's disappointing. And I feel like you see these instructors who are like, I believe in you, so, like, prove me wrong, or, like, sorry, not prove me wrong, but, like, show it as to why my feelings aren't misplaced in you. And it's the same thing with her wolf. The wolf chose her for a reason. So, like, I just feel like I loved all these relationships that she's given, but at the same time, by the end of this, I'm like, this girl doesn't deserve any of these people's, like, belief at this point, because she's just, it's offensive. Like, I actually was so frustrated. And then the cherry on top is that she gets named the alpha, so she now is actually responsible for this pack. The most least deserving person is responsible for a ton of people who she doesn't really care for that much. And, like, she'll, like, obviously the twins that she became friends with at the beginning, she cares for them. She cares for a handful of people, but, like, she doesn't, like, care that deeply for them in my eyes. Like, I just feel like I didn't feel it. I just felt like she only cared about her sister, about escaping with Lee, and then her wolf, and she only cared for her wolf out of, like, consequence for getting what she wanted, which is her allegiance to find her sister so she has an escape. So again, she's not assimilating properly to this world, and I just felt very disappointed, because I got it from the first half, but the second half, leading into the last third specifically, like, a part of me was just wanting to shake her and be like, do you not realize that it's not about you, and that, like, there are people who just need you right now and you're not seeing it? And it just, I don't know. She really disappointed me, and I will give her some credit that when she got named Alpha, she's acknowledged the fact that she's by no means ready to be an Alpha and would like to, you know, still learn and then take on that title at a given point with her wolf. But great, she acknowledged that she sucks. But, like, other than that, that was kind of it. And so her character really frustrated me. And when it came to the big reveal that, like, Lee, one of her most trusted people, is the bad guy, and that also he directly killed her mom, like, that was completely shied over. There was a reveal that he was the one that led that decision when we were discovering his intentions. and she completely just like in her fuel of rage, obviously was already at a rage point. But I feel like we need to acknowledge the fact that he killed the mom, because the mom is not a Looney Tune. Like, they explain that she's like mentally not all there and it's a sickness in the family, but it really references, which I expected, that she isn't actually crazy, and there is a meaning behind the craziness that people assume. And we did crack that open at the end of this book, and then it kind of just dropped. It just dropped because we were busy reacting to Buddy Boy Lee being this big deception person. And I just feel like, I hope they talk about this a lot more in the second one, because I was really interested in the mom, actually. I felt like everything she was saying had meaning without obviously knowing if it did. And it referenced that at the end, and then it also, Lee kind of puts on this bangle to steal the power that, like, he specifically set the mom up to die so the power would transfer into the FMC. And then he's like now trying to like harness and steal that power. And she's almost like defensive about it, as if like, oh, you can, like, how dare you take my power? But she doesn't even know what that power is. Like, she also thought her mom was crazy. So I just feel like her defensiveness of that was really like stupid again, because we haven't gotten any context as to really what that power meant from the mom and what she was about. So I hope they really dig into that, because I feel like that's a really big miss for me if they do not. But yeah, and then the one thing I'll give credit for, though it wasn't predictable, and I did enjoy this, is when the sister ended up being in transition and turning into what I'm calling a vampire, because they remind me of vampires, like the Siphons, whatever. So what Lee and his dad are, he ends up biting her. She's in transition at the very end of this book, and that's how we kind of finish off. And that was a pretty good cliffhanger for me, because they allude to how like these vampire-like creatures are really an enemy in this. And then now, like, the whole point was saving the sister, and now the sister is becoming the enemy indirectly, and she doesn't have a choice. And I feel like her sister's so young, so like that's really unfortunate. And I feel like that was a good one. That was a good one for me, as to finish this off. I was like, good job, good job, good job. I'm in that. I'm very much in that. So I don't know. I'm hopeful. I'm really hopeful for the next one, guys. I really am. I just hope this FMC grows a pair, because she's really like annoying me. So anyways, let me know your thoughts. Bye for now, guys.